certain people have certain difficulties with certain mitzvot. But if you continue to stay loyal to Hashem, little by little it becomes easier. I remember before I took on the holy mitzvah of observing Shabbat, we were already learning Torah on a regular basis. We're already keeping kashrut. We're already praying every single day. But Shabbat was something that I didn't get to. Theoretically, in my mind, I thought that this is something that you have to get to. I didn't realize that every single second that I'm alive without observing Shabbat is literally a miracle in itself, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises in the Torah no less than 12 times that a Jew that does not observe Shabbat, it's a death penalty, meaning that it's a death penalty at that moment, not in some future time. There's death upon death. There's death in this world. There's death in the next world. It's a horrific, atrocious punishment we're not going to get into now. But the point being is, I thought that, observing Shabbat, one day I'll get to it. And then, one day when my Rav told me that it's time for me to observe Shabbat, and he didn't say it in a joking manner, he didn't say it in a funny way. He simply told me it's time. Initially I made, a whole bunch of excuses of why observing Shabbat is simply impossible for me. But Baruch Hashem, Hashem had mercy on me, and while I was talking, I was listening to myself and realized how I was so full of it, that all of what I said was simply excuses. And the beautiful thing is that, when you are already connected to honesty and to truth altogether, you realize that even sometimes you yourself have some falsehood and you have to call yourself out. So really, during that same conversation, I told him, listen, everything I just said to you, Kvod Rav, it's all nonsense. I'm full of it. I'm taking on Shabbat, even though I have all these excuses. The reality is I have to do it. And I took on Shabbat, Baruch Hashem, and it was the greatest Shabbat in the history of Shabbats. It was so good, we didn't want it to end. We extended the Shabbat. We didn't know if we're allowed to keep it for longer. We just simply didn't want it to end. And Baruch Hashem, it's one of those things where when a person takes on the mitzvah, as Rabbi Chaim Volozhin says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him the strength to do it. Once you commit to doing it psychologically, you decide, I'm going to do this. Hashem said this, I'm going to do it. This is a mitzvah, I'm going to do it. Once you commit to doing it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you the strength to do it. Before you've committed to it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't necessarily give you the strength to do it in the same tense, simply because you have a Yetzirah you have to overcome. You have a Yetzirah to overcome. Now, of course, we're created to fulfill the Torah, as Moshe Rabbeinu says in Sefer Dvarim, the book of Deuteronomy, Bepicha ubilvavcha la'asoto, it's in your mouth, it's in your heart to fulfill it. The entire Torah is something that you are programmed, you were created to fulfill. So all of it is something that you can do. There is no such thing as a part of the Torah that you can't do. But the obstacle that's in front of you, that Yetzirah, that evil inclination that confuses you, that makes you think you can't do it, that makes you think it's too much for you, that part, once you commit to fighting it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, now that you committed, now I'm going to join your fight and I'm going to beat that Yetzirah. And Baruch Hashem, it's one of those beautiful things that when you explain it to people how beautiful Shabbat is, sometimes it's not enough. It's not enough to explain to a person that Shabbat is beautiful. It's a vacation once a week, but much more than a vacation, simply because you have literally time with yourself to go learn Torah, to spend time with the family, spend some time with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to pray, to eat, to do all these wonderful things that really your mind is not capable of doing during the week, when you have cell phones and computers and mail and bills and work and all of these different things. You don't have it during the week. And of course, the Yetzirah shows up on Shabbat also. And there's always some Yetzirah that makes you want to get into a fight with your spouse, or makes your kids extra annoying, or makes your health fall apart. And there's always Yetzirah on Shabbat too. But needless to say, when you understand what Shabbat is, and you understand that this is my opportunity to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the Torah that I learn on Shabbat, according to the Ben Ish Chai and many other Chachamim, it's worth 1,000 times more. 1,000 times more than the Torah that a person learns during the week. So much so that when Rabbanit, the Rav Ovadia's dear Rabbanit, his wife, when she was asked, how much time does Rav Ovadia sleep on Shabbat? She said, I swear to you that from the time that I know him, he has never slept on Shabbat. Never slept on Shabbat. From the time Shabbat starts, with the exception of the Kiddush, eating quickly with the family, he learns Torah non-stop, doesn't go to sleep. Why? can't miss out on this opportunity that the Torah that you're learning on Shabbat is 1,000 times more meritorious, valuable, and extraordinary than the Torah that you learn the rest of the week. So if somebody that learns Torah non-stop during the rest of the week, like Rav Ovadia alav hashalom, took advantage of the opportunity on Shabbat, needless to say, we have to as well. But of course, the Yetzer Hara is going to show up, and the Yetzer Hara is going to tell you that you can't do it, and it's too much for you, and that it's too this, and it's too that. Don't let the Yetzer Hara fool you. Don't let the Yetzer Hara tell you that you can't do it. As the Chovot HaLevavot says in the Sha'ar Teshuva, that you owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself. Once you know that the Hashem is real and the Torah is real, you owe it to yourself. Have some mercy on yourself, says the Chovot HaLevavot. Have some mercy on your own soul and do tshuva immediately, because he gives a whole list of reasons of why you need to do tshuva, starting with the fact that if you don't do tshuva, you're simply going to get punished, which brings us back to the point where sometimes when you tell a person that observing Shabbat is beautiful and you have an opportunity unlike any other, that doesn't necessarily always sell. And one of the reasons is because many times a person looks around and he sees other Jews that are observing Shabbat in their way, and perhaps they're going to shul, and perhaps they're having kiddush and they're eating, but the holiness of Shabbat is sometimes lacking because there's not enough Torah. They're talking about business, which is forbidden, or they're just playing basketball, which is problematic, the issue of muktzeh with the ball for adults. There's all types of issues where the holiness of Shabbat is almost non-existent. It's like it's just literally a vacation from their work, but not a vacation from the mundane. So it's important for a person to learn a lot of Torah. If you're a single, if you're married, if you have kids, learning Torah on Shabbat is of utmost importance. And when you tell a person that this is something that they need to do and it's beautiful, if they're not already learning Torah, they simply have no idea why this is good. And there comes the obligation for us to teach them a reason of why they need to be afraid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not because they're afraid of His majesty and His glory and His beauty, and not because they're not loving Hashem enough, but rather afraid of outright punishment. A punishment that every single person that has a working brain cell knows what it means. A punishment of health crisis, a punishment of money matters, marriage matters, children. No one wants to get a phone call that chas v'shalom that somebody that they love just died. Nobody wants to get a phone call that they just lost their biggest customer. Nobody wants to get a phone call that their spouse doesn't want to be with them anymore with an unrealistic reason. Nobody wants to get those calls. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to us that when we observe the Shabbat, and we keep it, we protect it, that Shabbat protects us from all of the different enemies that we have throughout the whole week. And when a person understands that there is an extraordinary punishment, not just in Gehenom that they don't even know about yet, and the fire and all the horrible things that happen there, but rather there's a punishment in this world. You're simply putting yourself in the same status as an animal when you do not observe Shabbat. Now, of course, some of the righteous Noahides hear this and they want to keep Shabbat also. And we've told them many times in the name of the Rambam and many other Chachamim that a non-Jew is not allowed to observe Shabbat. You're allowed to take vacation from your work, you're allowed to eat a special meal, but to observe Shabbat like a Jew does, lighting the candles, doing Kiddush, all of those things is not allowed for a non-Jew, simply because this is a gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to Am Yisrael as one of the three things in the Torah that is called a covenant between Hashem and Am Yisrael. So therefore, a non-Jew that wants to observe Shabbat, either they have to convert, or they simply have to understand that they're going to get punished for what they're doing. It's as simple as it gets. Now, only a fool would say, oh yeah, I'm going to do that, and it's okay if I get punished. That means that you're not observing Shabbat because you love Hashem. You're observing Shabbat because you love yourself. So it's important for a person to know the truth, and sometimes that truth hurts because it doesn't fit with our existing reality, with our existing beliefs. And there comes some of these unique laws that are in the Torah where the Torah tells us that yes, there are certain things that are logical, there are certain things that are illogical, but thereby either one, they're acceptable to you because you like them, it fits your mentality, your lifestyle, to let's say to eat kosher, you understand it because in your mind it's healthier, spiritually and physically. Observing Shabbat, it makes sense to you. Why? Because it's a time to connect to Hashem even further and with the family and everything else. To not murder people, yeah, sure, I like that one. I don't want anybody to murder me, I don't want to murder them. And there's certain things that make sense to people. But Chachamim always tell us that there are certain laws that are not going to make sense whatsoever. But yet we have to learn them. We have to learn them and we have to accept them.